Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Patricia Coughlin. I wanted to talk to you today about 3 pathways to obtaining an initial breakthrough of emotion that can trigger an opening into the unconscious, which is really the goal of ISTDP, right? We want to get to the unconscious driver, the unconscious source, and perpetuator of symptoms and suffering. This is often blocked from our view and that of our patient by defenses against the anxiety provoking and guilt laden feelings and impulses that we're going to need to gain access to. So Habib Davanloo developed a procedure, which he calls the central dynamic sequence, to structure not only that first trial therapy, but really every session. That we come in with an open mind, gathering data on the problem at hand. And as we begin to gather that data, what's going on? When did it start? What were the triggers? We are going to form a hypothesis about the underlying conflict responsible for those difficulties. Now, as we ask for specific information, so you're saying you had a real dip in your mood, you felt depressed on Wednesday, right? Let's look at what was happening. And the person ends up revealing they had a fight with their boyfriend. We are then going to begin to ask about what kinds of feelings got stirred up toward him. And this is where you're typically going to see defenses coming into play: minimization, rationalization, projection, denial, all kinds of things. So we have a good bit of work to do in most cases on those defenses, helping the patient see that instead of feeling, they're doing something to avoid their feelings. Instead of feeling their emotion, they're going to their head with lots of thoughts and explanations and judgments. And then we're going to invite them to look at what the consequence of that is, right? So the more they go to judgment, blaming themselves and others, right, the more depressed they get. So this is a really important phase in the treatment so that the patient can understand the things they've been doing to avoid their feelings are actually creating the problems. And this, of course, increases motivation to relinquish those defenses in favor of feeling their feelings. And yet that path is rarely smooth. And in many cases, as we really point out these defenses and look at the cost and challenge the person to give them up and face these feelings they've been avoiding, that's going to stir up feelings in and of itself. So that, first phase of inquiry, second phase of defense work, and then we're going to, in most cases, get to the phase of mobilization of feelings. And it seems as if in ISTDP, people have started to think or even be taught that the only pathway to a breakthrough of feeling is in the transference, right? That the patient is going to have complex mixed feelings towards you, the therapist, for challenging them. And certainly this happens at times. And so that's one pathway, right? It looks like you're having a lot of feelings here toward me, right? There's some gratitude and positive feelings for trying to help you, but also irritation. But that's not the only pathway, and not all patients just automatically go there. And I think the idea of trying to make something happen in the transference to create iatrogenic feelings of anger and irritation is a very risky procedure. And so if you trust the unconscious, feelings are going to arise, and deal with the ones that come up. So in addition to the transference, the other common pathway of a first breakthrough into the unconscious is grief over the cost of the defenses. And as the patient really comes to recognize the enormous price that they have paid by avoiding their feelings and avoiding the closeness with others that tends to trigger those feelings, you might get a very deep breakthrough of grief. And I'm thinking of one case in particular where there was, again, this enormous wave of grief over the cost of the defenses, and he immediately went to a memory in the past when those defenses got established, right? There was a horrific situation with his mother, who was very mentally ill, attacking him, and he just shut down in that moment. So we did, in fact, get that breakthrough into the unconscious with a link to a very significant memory that shed light on the origin of his difficulties. And that really is the point, right? So, one, again, through the transference. Two, you can get a breakthrough of profound grief over the cost of the defenses. And then three, you can actually get a breakthrough in the current situation that precipitated the person calling for help. So you might have a situation where there's a big conflict in a marriage, or with a child who's going off the rails, a parent just died, whatever. And in patients who either because they're in crisis and their defenses have already partially broken down, or they're a healthier person, right, with a more neurotic structure, with your help, they're going to actually be able to face and experience their complex mixed feelings toward important people in their current life orbit. And I saw a good example of this actually, and a colleague was showing a videotape of his work with a young man who was able to get a breakthrough in the current situation with his girlfriend, who had just broken up with him. And as he was able to allow himself to experience these feelings of anger that he had completely avoided previously by just blaming and attacking himself, he got an instant link to the past with his father. So again, that is the point. The point is to open up the unconscious and get these links between the current difficulties and the unresolved feelings and conflicts from the past. And these are the three primary pathways for achieving that breakthrough. So don't try again to make something happen in the transference. If it happens and they're having feelings towards you, great, deal with them. But if not, and they're on board with you and they're able to face feelings toward a current figure, go for that. Again, if there's a big breakthrough of grief over the cost of the defenses, follow that. That's the unconscious alliance, right, is going to bring to you the pathway that's going to be most accessible for this particular patient. So I hope this is helpful to you. I think this is a really important topic. And actually, my colleague, Dr. Brandon Yarnes, and I are going to be writing an article about this. So I'll let you know when that gets published. Thanks. Bye-bye.